Have you ever had your blood pressure checked and heard someone say 120/80? It's one of the most common medical measurements in the world, yet most people never stop to ask what those two numbers actually mean. Why are there two? Why isn't there just a single blood pressure reading? And if one number is higher than the other, which one is more important? Whether you're visiting your doctor, donating blood, or using one of those automatic machines at a pharmacy, those two numbers always appear together. We know they're important because healthcare professionals pay close attention to them, but unless someone explains them, they can seem like nothing more than mysterious figures. Today, we're exploring why blood pressure has two numbers, what each one measures, and why both are equally important right here on History of Simple Things. Before we can understand the numbers, we first need to understand the heart itself. Your heart is an extraordinary muscular pump about the size of your fist. It begins beating before you're born and, if all goes well, continues without stopping for your entire life. On average, it beats around 100,000 times every day. Over the course of a lifetime, that's more than 2 billion heartbeats. But here's something many people don't realize. Your heart isn't constantly squeezing. Every heartbeat consists of two distinct phases. First, the heart contracts, forcing blood out into the arteries. Then it relaxes, allowing its chambers to refill with blood before the next beat. This repeating cycle of pumping and resting is exactly why blood pressure has two numbers. Because the heart performs two different actions, the pressure inside your arteries is constantly changing. It rises during the squeeze and falls during the rest. Measuring both moments gives doctors a much clearer picture of how your cardiovascular system is functioning. The first or top number is called the systolic blood pressure. This measures the highest pressure inside your arteries at the exact moment your heart contracts. Imagine squeezing a tube of toothpaste. As you press down, the pressure inside the tube increases, forcing the toothpaste outward. Your heart does something very similar. Every contraction sends oxygen-rich blood rushing through your arteries toward every organ and tissue in your body. That surge creates the highest pressure your arteries experience during each heartbeat. If your reading is 120/80, the number 120 is the systolic pressure. This number reflects how much force your heart generates to move blood throughout your body. It tells doctors how much pressure your arteries experience during the heart's most active moment. The second, or lower number, is called the diastolic blood pressure. This measures the pressure inside your arteries while your heart is relaxing between beats. At first glance, you might think the pressure should drop to zero once the heart stops squeezing. But that's not what happens. Your arteries aren't rigid pipes, they're flexible and elastic. When blood rushes into them, they stretch slightly, storing some of the energy from each heartbeat. As the heart relaxes, those arteries gently spring back, helping push blood forward even before the next heartbeat occurs. It's similar to stretching a rubber band. Once released, it naturally returns to its original shape. This remarkable property keeps blood flowing continuously instead of stopping and starting with every heartbeat. So, if your blood pressure is 120/80, the number 80 represents the pressure that remains while your heart is resting and preparing for the next contraction. You might wonder why doctors don't simply measure the higher number. The reason is that each number provides different information. The systolic pressure reflects how forcefully your heart pumps blood. The diastolic pressure reflects the condition of your arteries and the amount of pressure maintained between heartbeats. Sometimes the systolic pressure becomes elevated while the diastolic pressure remains normal. This is especially common in older adults because arteries naturally become less flexible with age. In other cases, the diastolic pressure may be unusually high even when the systolic pressure isn't. Looking at both numbers together helps healthcare providers identify different patterns that could point to different health concerns. Neither number tells the complete story on its own. Another common misconception is that blood pressure is fixed. In reality, it's constantly changing. When you exercise, your muscles need more oxygen, so your heart pumps harder and faster. If you're startled by a loud noise, your body releases stress hormones that temporarily increase your blood pressure. Even climbing stairs, drinking coffee, laughing, or becoming excited can cause noticeable changes. While you're sleeping, your blood pressure usually falls because your body requires less oxygen and energy. These changes are completely normal. That's why doctors often take multiple readings or recommend measuring blood pressure at different times instead of relying on a single measurement. Some people even experience what's called white coat syndrome, where simply being in a doctor's office causes temporary anxiety and raises their blood pressure. The inflatable cuff used to measure blood pressure seems surprisingly simple, yet it's based on an ingenious idea. When the cuff inflates around your upper arm, it gently squeezes the artery beneath it until blood flow temporarily stops. As the cuff slowly deflates, blood begins flowing again. The first pulse detected marks the systolic pressure. As more air escapes, blood eventually flows smoothly without interruption. That point helps determine the diastolic pressure. Traditional blood pressure measurements rely on a healthcare professional listening through a stethoscope for specific sounds called Korotkoff sounds. Modern digital monitors use sensitive electronic sensors and sophisticated algorithms to detect tiny pressure changes automatically. Although the technology has improved dramatically over the years, the principle remains exactly the same: measuring the highest and lowest pressures produced during every heartbeat. The next time someone mentions their blood pressure is 120/80, you'll know those aren't just random numbers. They're measuring two different moments in one heartbeat, one when the heart is working at full strength and another when it's preparing to do it all again. It's remarkable that a measurement taking less than a minute can reveal so much about the health of your heart, your arteries, and your entire circulatory system. And sometimes, understanding something as ordinary as two numbers on a blood pressure monitor reminds us that even the simplest everyday measurements are backed by extraordinary science. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.